employment was, I guess, really similar to being an agent. You're an agent for employees.
Okay, so welcome to the You Are Lawyer podcast. Gary Martoccio, how are you today?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I guess, yeah, it just turned in the afternoon on the East Coast here at least. So,
Me
yeah.
too. I'm in Ohio. Where are you?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Okay. All right, cool. So, Gary, this podcast is all about having fun, lawyers taking risks, lawyers changing their careers, lawyers doing all kinds of fun things. So, would you tell the audience what you do every day? Like, what's your life like?
Absolutely. So I practice in plaintiffs employment law. I represent employees against employers. It's all I've ever done. So I've been practicing law almost 13 years now. All I've ever done has been on the plaintiff side, handling employment cases. It's been a wild ride. There's no shortage of interesting cases when dealing with employment law. My day to day, it's pretty consistent. First, from the jump, obviously, you're evaluating a case, getting an initial communication out to an employer, letting them know that you're representing an employee. Then most cases have to go through what's called the EEOC process, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Is the next step in most employment cases. So we're representing employees in EEOC mediations. Most appearances dealing with the EEOC are virtually or Zoom or even phone sometimes, depending. And then after that, if the case still isn't resolved, then you go into a lawsuit typically. So most of our cases are filed in federal court. So I practice a lot in federal court and, the whole lawsuit process that ensues from there. There's various stages of a case, and you're touching a little bit of everything. But yeah, we've got a pretty good system down in a process from doing this for so long, and I really love this area of law.
Yeah, you got to tell me more details because employment law is huge, right? Like, are you dealing with people who wanted a raise and didn't get it? Are you dealing with harassment issues? There's so many different areas of employment law. Do you have a specific one or any cases that are your favorite?
Right. So yeah, we deal with discrimination and retaliation. So if someone's discriminated against based on race, age, gender, disability, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, etc. So you've got that bucket of discrimination cases. You've got sexual harassment that also falls under a law called Title VII, which covers a lot of the areas of discrimination that I just named as well. And then we've got a lot of cases that surround medical issues in the workplace and not workers' compensation. That's a different bucket and a different practice area, but we deal a lot with the ADA and the FMLA. A lot of cases we have where someone is dealing with medical issues and gets terminated, and there's certain rights around that in the workplace, or someone requests an accommodation due to a medical issue in the workplace and they're denied. So we deal with a lot of that. I'd say, a good amount of our cases are under the ADA and FMLA. There's also a lot of cases surrounding pregnancy-related discrimination, male employees seeking to take paternity leave and they're terminated. So those type of things are what we deal with. That's pretty much the gist of it. We'll pick up some other matters here and there, but that's the meat of, the employment disputes that we'll deal with.
Yeah. Okay. That's helping me see the picture a little bit more, right? Because employment laws, you're employing someone. So it's basically all the things that they could possibly deal with, right? As being individuals in the office.
Right.
So
right.
That makes sense. Okay. And I asked that because the show audience is made up of a lot of law students, and then it's young lawyers, so 5 years practicing or less. And so they've probably heard of a lot of these terms, but aren't quite sure, like, what would your day be like? So thank you.
Right. Absolutely. Happy to help give guidance on that. And we do a really good job just organizing cases in their various stages because it can be all over the place in employment law. It's not like a lot of other areas of law where you send your demand letter and then you file a lawsuit if the insurance carrier doesn't settle it, personal injury. That's what. But in employment law, there's various stages. You've got your demand letter stage. You've got your government agency stage with the EEOC. There's states that have their version of the EEOC as well. So you've got cases kind of all over the place, and you got your cases in a lawsuit. So you have to really be organized with the various stages and touch on the cases each day. We've got a really good support staff here that's been with me for a while. So yeah, we've got a pretty good formula. It's all about just being organized.
Yeah. And so do you run your own law firm?
Yes, yes. So I started my own firm about 6 months ago. I was with a larger plaintiffs employment firm for 12 years, and then I went out on my own. Of my colleagues came with me from the old firm to start this business. So yeah, I've been going for about 6 months, but my day feels pretty much exactly the same as it did when I was kind of just picked up where we left off.
Yeah. So what made you decide to take the leap?
It was about time. I was with a larger firm for a while. You know, being on the plaintiff side, it's a little bit different of a dynamic than defense firms, where the defense side, they've got their billable hours, and kind of rely on a firm for getting business. I had a reputation from being out there long enough to where I was starting to get so many people contacting me directly. And, I said, look, I think it's at the point where, I've kind of done everything that I could do for the firm. And the firm's kind of done everything it could do for me. And it was time, so we parted ways amicably. It was very amicable separation. And, yeah, it was super exciting to have your name on something, to do your own thing, and, to be able to run cases your own way. And not really, have everybody to answer to. You can't put a price on that. With that comes more responsibility, but it's been enjoyable so far. I can't complain.
Yeah, when I first got out of law school, I went and worked at a big law firm for about 5 years, and there was only one time that I thought about running my own business. Right? It's not like you have a bad day and you think about it, because it's a completely different thing to run it yourself. So I get that. You had the thought and you were thinking it a couple times. You're like, okay, now it's time.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
odd to say that you'll just know, but you kind of just know. And after what, 12 and a half years of practicing, you were like, okay, I can do it now.
Yeah, yeah. I think forever grateful to my firm for that. The experience is something you need, and I think you're absolutely right. You just know. I got to a point where I was like, I'm doing it. It's not something that you need to sit there and plan for years. You just know when the time's right. Yeah, obviously you want to do it cordially, amicably, and give your proper notice and all that stuff. But here we are.
Yeah. Okay. So you are licensed to practice law in a lot of states, right? And a lot of them you got through reciprocity. I want to
Right.
talk about that for a minute, because I am in Ohio right now. I'm from Ohio. I went to law school in Louisiana. Louisiana has reciprocity with no place. And
Yeah.
I was really surprised by that. But so you are licensed in Florida, Illinois, Massachusetts, Arizona, North Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, and Pennsylvania.
That's all right.
Were these states because you wanted the reciprocity? Were you thinking about that when you were taking the bar or even in law school?
Yeah. So coming out of law school, I didn't really even know what area of law I wanted to practice in. I knew I wanted to take the Florida bar because that's where I'm from. I went to law school here in Florida, Florida State, and Florida has reciprocity with no one. So I was about a year into practicing. My firm asked me to take another bar exam. We were starting to expand to some other states. It was a great opportunity. So I took the Illinois bar the July after I took Florida. So I took Florida July of 2012, took Illinois in July of 2013. And Illinois has a perk where if you take it within a year of taking the multi-state bar, you only have to take the state version. So I was like, okay, cool. Only the state version. You're only taking half of it. So I passed Illinois, and with that, once you've been practicing, I think depends on what state, but 3 to 5 years, Illinois has reciprocity with a bunch of different states. So, but I was only a year in at that time. So if I wanted other states, I had to take the bar unless I wanted to wait 3 to 5 years. So I took Massachusetts and Arizona shortly thereafter, passed those bars, and then the rest of the states I've waved in with reciprocity. Arizona is a part of the UBE, so I think there's like 30 states that are a part of the UBE. So yeah, if someone's looking to have the ability to practice in multiple states, I think taking a UBE state. But yeah, that opened up a lot of doors to wave in, and it's still a process. Like you still have to go through the background check and all that good stuff, and I feel like that's almost as exhausting as sitting down for the bar exam sometimes. But I'd rather do just that instead of doing that plus the exam. But yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. Yeah, looking to add maybe another state or two here, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So that's a really good perspective, because if you come out of law school and you know what you want to do, great. But it probably will change. And if you come out of law school and you don't know what you want to do, then it's definitely going to change, right? And so I think it's important that people are aware, like, okay, maybe you've never even thought about moving to Arizona, but it doesn't hurt that you have, right, that you're
Right.
licensed there.
Gives you the flexibility, and even if you don't move, right, it's like it opens up the ability to take cases, and firms are looking for people with multiple licenses. I mean, when I first started this in 2012, it was very rare to see someone with multiple licenses. Now you're starting to see it more often, even on the defense side. Yeah, it gives you flexibility, and yeah, law is one of the only professions where you literally you can't move without taking another test, right? So it's like the earlier you can have the option to and freedom to move around, it's, the better, right? You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, all right, cool. So you said when you got out of law school, you weren't quite sure what you wanted to do, or at least what type of law you wanted to practice. Did you have any idea when you started? Like, did it change while you were in law school, or did it kind of fall off and that's why you were curious?
Yeah, so I went to law school really just on a whim. I played baseball in undergrad, and as most athletes, you think you're going to play forever. And I got to the point where time was up. I didn't get drafted to the next level, and I graduated undergrad during the financial crisis 2008, so there were no jobs out there. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and ended up trying out coaching baseball for a little bit and didn't love that. I realized I loved playing a lot more than I loved coaching. So then one of my good friends was going to law school, and he was like, "Yeah, why don't you give that a shot?" And I was like, "You know what? I'm going to do that." And ended up taking the LSAT, got into Florida State, went up to visit, and I was like, this place is pretty awesome. So I went up there. My best friend that was the one that suggested that I went to law school also, yeah, got into Florida State, and we went in there together. And yeah, so my initial interest was, I'm gonna go to law school. I'll get into sports somehow. A sports agent, or maybe somewhere in the front office of a baseball team, or whatnot. And I started asking around some friends that were still playing in minor league baseball, if I could be their agent. Got a couple of them that actually agreed. So I was their representative in law school. They ended up not making it to the major leagues out of the minors. It's a really tough road. I never picked up any clients after that, and started practicing law. And, I knew I was going to have to practice law even if they made it to the major leagues, because it's a while before you can actually turn, a sports agency into profit. So I was going to have a day job, so to speak. But yeah, I knew I wanted to be on the plaintiff side if I was going to practice law. Was looking around at personal injury firms, threw my name in the hat at the employment firm that I was at. Got hired, and started doing really well with the firm. Fell in love with this area of law, and the rest was history. I never tried to pick up any sports agent clients again, and here we are. So that's how we got here. But yes, I always knew I wanted to be on the plaintiff side, wherever it would be. And employment was, I guess, really similar to being an agent. You're an agent for employees instead of athletes.
Yeah. I mean, it's all advocacy, right?
Right.
A lot of times when people hear like, "Oh, you're an advocate," they only think about the courtroom, and it's like, no, I was on the defense side at the big law firm, and it's advocating. It's just advocating for the big corporation, but
Right.
it's all advocacy. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, did you know any lawyers when you were growing up, or was that friend truly the first interest you even had?
To be honest, yeah, a couple friends, fathers, I knew were lawyers. My mom was in healthcare. My dad worked in nonprofits helping people with disabilities his whole life. So my family didn't have a law background. So I mean, yeah, it was really. I went to law school on a whim, and ended up being, one of the best decisions I've ever made, though.
Yeah. Okay. And I have to ask, just because I'm curious, is your friend still practicing, or did they switch to something else?
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's in house with a developer in Miami. He's based out of Miami. Does big real estate development projects. I guess he's still a traditional lawyer. He's not like litigating on a daily basis, but yeah, he is. And his dad practices law as well. But yeah, I guess I could say they're my inspiration to practice. But yeah, I'm doing more of traditional law than he is right now, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no problem. I went to
Yeah.
law school wanting to do environmental law, and then switched, ended up doing big law, IP, you know what I mean, trademarks and stuff. And my law school roommate went to law school wanting to do big law, and she ended up doing like compliance. So it often switches and goes all the other ways.
You never know. It's like law school is one thing, but when you're actually practicing, it may be totally different than what you think it's going to be like, and there may be something that you didn't think you'd like that that you really are a great fit for and have a great skill set for. So yeah, it's you never know till you get in there, right? law school's not really giving you much of a preview of what a day in the life of that law firm or that area of law is going to be.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think back. I don't think I took any employment law classes. I feel like it might have been touched on in like torts or something. I took business entities, but I don't remember. Did you take employee or like employer law type
I
class?
did, yeah, I did. It was actually taught by a guy in Tallahassee, where Florida State is, that practiced in employment law. He was an adjunct professor, I think they call it, and yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome class, but I still had no idea coming out of there. I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is the area of law I want to get into. But Yeah, his name was Gary, actually. That's how I remember it. But yeah, so it was a great class. It was super interesting. I enjoyed it. It was a relatively easy law school class. I think that's probably why I took it. But yeah, it was. That was my first exposure to it, and it's actually funny. Like when you're sitting in that class, you're not really understanding any of this stuff. You're hearing things like the EEOC and this and that, and now I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember when we talked about this. Now, when you're applying it, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, in that class, I was just kind of going through the motions as a law student, just trying to, you know.
That's kind of cool. You should send him an email.
I know. I really need to. I
Hey, Gary.
need to. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, he was plaintiff side as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my last question for you, and I ask this of every guest. What would you say to a law student or a young lawyer about what they could do with their law degree?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't limit yourself. There's a lot of things, and the law degree, I think, separates you, from a lot of people. And don't just limit yourself to traditional practice. I mean, it's truly set yourself up for so many different avenues, and don't be afraid to think outside the box and get in a non-traditional practice area. I would say it's a lot easier to start off with like a law firm, a litigator, and go out than it is the other way around. Yeah, but trust your gut. If you're doing something and you're not loving it, it doesn't feel right, you'll probably know right away. Don't force yourself through it. I think a lot of lawyers are like, oh, I've been doing this so long, I just don't know what else I'm going to do, and they get stuck in something 5, 10 years down the road. Yeah, then you are truly stuck. But if it doesn't feel right from the jump, get out before you kind of are trapped, and then because no one's going to want to hire a 5, 6, 7 year associate that has never practiced in that area. So try to get into something that feels right for you as quickly as possible, and don't waste time if you're not enjoying the type of law or the firm that you're at. I would get out sooner rather than later. It's really hard to pivot once you're kind of pigeonholed in a certain field and whatnot.
Yeah. So what would you say? Maybe like a year to 18 months to see if you like it? You're not talking about every 3 months.
Yeah, I'd say about a year is fair. I think you'll get a really good understanding of where it's at. Now, that doesn't mean like, oh, if I'm not a partner immediately, but no, if that area of law feels right, yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of the, maybe not as glamorous work off the bat, but look ahead, look at if you're with a firm, look at the people that have been there a while. Is that where you see yourself, in 5, 10 years? And if it's not, then yeah, and then get the heck out of there. And if it is, then work your tail off to get there, right?
No, I think that's really good advice because I was in IP law. And so the lawyers in that group are a little bit different. We're a little bit more creative, a little bit more outspoken, a little bit different. But you could
Right.
also see, oh, okay, we have a mergers and acquisitions group, or we have a this. Even if you can't see other people and you're like, well, maybe I could do that. If you can't see it, it's not going to happen. So if the people you're around are absolutely miserable, if you're not having fun either, and you don't think you would even want to like switch to a different practice group,
Right.
yeah.
If I could do it another area of law, I probably would say be M&A, mergers and acquisitions. I'm doing a lot of high stakes negotiating of like severance packages, things like that, settlement agreements. Obviously, that would be one other area that I had no idea what it was coming out of law school. But no, I absolutely love employment law. Everything about it. It's a good opportunity to help people. It's something that every day there's something new. It doesn't get old. Yeah, you've got days where things kind of redundant and whatnot every now and then. But you get to see so many people from so many different walks of life, and the clients are really awesome. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Of course. I was gonna say, you still got time. Maybe in 5 years you pick up a mergers and acquisitions group.
Right, right. I'll have to look at that. I'll have to look into that.
You
We'll
never
see.
know. You never know. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for sharing with the audience. I know they're going to really enjoy it and learn a lot more about employment law. All right. You have a great day.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.